I found a very insightful piece out of Foreign Affairs called The Path to American Authoritarianism: What Comes After Democratic Breakdown. The reason I find it insightful is because of their inability to self reflect. Throughout this entire piece, their inability to look themselves in the mirror is astonishing. And remember, this is out of Foreign Affairs. Foreign Affairs is the deep state. This is their blueprint on what they see about to happen. Also, their blueprint of what they did. We're just going to go through a few parts of this. It's a huge piece, and I'm going to be sure to link it. But we are going to hit some touch points through this because it's fascinating. I find it fascinating. I'm just going to highlight the authors for you so you can see who they are and that they are clearly of the line to side with the technocrats, especially considering this is a technocrat publication. And the Council on Foreign Relations has tentacles in every aspect of American government. If you don't know who the Council on Foreign Relations are, then you really need to pause this video and do some research, because they are the ones in charge. Now we're going to hit some talking points and some very interesting points in this. So let's get into it. Again, we're not going to hit every single thing. I just want to get to the most important parts. Democracy survived Trump's first term because he had no experience, plan, or team. He did not control the Republican Party when he took office in 2017, and most Republican leaders were still committed to the democratic rules of the game. Just note that. Trump governed with establishment Republicans and technocrats, and they largely constrained him. We can definitely remember them constraining him and flat out lying to him. Best example of that is when he demanded troops be withdrawn from Syria, they said, yes, sir. 6 months later, he found out they were still there. They just blocked him. They blocked him at every opportunity they could. None of those things are true anymore. This time, Trump has made it clear he intends to govern with loyalists. He now dominates the Republican Party, which, purged itself of anti-Trump forces, now acquiesces to his authoritarian behavior. There's still plenty of anti-Trump forces in the Republican Party. Plenty of them. A person who actually has an op-ed in this magazine, Mitch McConnell. He put an op-ed here in Foreign Affairs magazine. Obviously, being one of the heads of the deep state, he had one of his interns write that from his wheelchair. U.S. democracy will likely break down in the Trump second administration. We're going to repeat that. U.S. democracy will likely break down during the second Trump administration, in the sense that it will cease to meet standard criteria for liberal democracy: full adult suffrage, free and fair elections, and broad protection of civil liberties. I find it very important to emphasize those issues as we hit some of these talking points. The breakdown of democracy. The United States will not give rise to a classic dictatorship, which elections are a sham and opposition is locked up, exiled, or killed. Even in a worst-case scenario, Trump will not be able to rewrite the Constitution or overturn the constitutional order. He will be constrained by independent judges, federalism, the country's professionalized military, and high barriers to constitutional reform. There will be elections in 2028, and the Republicans could lose them. Now, we're going to skip forward here. They give a number of examples of what they call authoritarian regimes, and most of them are. The point they don't mention is that most of them are left-wing. But, skipping forward, the weaponized state. The second Trump administration may violate basic civil liberties in ways that unambiguously subvert democracy. The president, for example, could order the army to shoot protesters, as he reportedly wanted to do during his first term. He could also fulfill his campaign promise to launch the largest deportation operation in American history, targeting millions of people in an abuse-ridden process that would inevitably lead to mistaken detention of thousands of U.S. citizens. They go through the weaponized state here, and they describe the use of prosecutors and federal agencies such as the FBI and the IRS to go after their opponents. They're saying that Trump is going to do that. That Trump is going to do that. This part here I find very interesting because it kind of cites their allegiance to the civil service. Professional civil servants have often played a critical role in resisting government efforts to weaponize state agencies. They have served as democracy's front line of defense in recent years in Brazil, India, Israel, Mexico, and Poland, as well as in the United States during the first Trump administration. As we said, he was blocked by the civil service deep state bureaucracy at every single turn. They continue to go on talking about some of the things that he could do. Here's the next one. You gotta love this. Shock and law. The most visible means of weaponizing the state is through the targeted prosecution. Really? Really? Trump wouldn't know anything about targeted prosecution. Neither would any member of his cohort. Rudy Giuliani wouldn't know about that. His son wouldn't know anything about that. None of the people of his administration would know anything about targeted prosecutions. Trump has repeatedly declared his intention to prosecute his rivals, including former Republican Liz Cheney and other lawmakers who served on the committee that investigated J6. Again, no self-reflection. They continue to go through on that point, and they talk about tax-exempt status. They talk about the FBI going after people that rival the administration's point of view, targeting people like Simon & Schuster, the Des Moines Register for lawsuits, things like that. Again, nothing the Trump administration has had any experience with over the last 5 years. Targeted prosecutions? Yeah, right. Honey trap. A weaponized state is not merely a tool to punish its opponents. It can also be used to build support. Governments and competitive authoritarian regimes routinely use economic policy and regulatory decisions to reward politically friendly individuals, firms, and organizations. Really? Folks, this is the technocrats. This is the deep state. These are the people that see themselves as the white knight. Nothing they do is wrong. Nothing they do is wrong. So everything we've heard so far, Trump might do A similar pattern is emerging in the media sector. Nearly all U.S. media outlets, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, The Washington Post, are owned and operated by large parent corporations, although Trump cannot carry out his threat to withhold licensing from national television because they are not licensed nationally. He can pressure media outlets by pursuing their corporate owners. Or it could be like thousands of subscriptions to Politico or billions of dollars to Reuters. God, nobody would do that. That's stupid. Protection racket. Finally, a weaponized state can serve as a legal shield to protect government officials or allies who engage in anti-democratic behavior. A loyalist Justice Department, for example, could turn a blind eye to pro-Trump political violence, such as attacks or threats against journalism, elected officials, protesters, or opposition political activists. I mean, who's turned a blind eye to anything, right? I mean, come on. Good thing nobody threatened a Supreme Court justice. You know, good thing there were no acts of political violence during the previous 5 years. Not one act of political violence. 2020 never happened. It was a summer of love. And when I saw that supporter shot in Portland, he was not a supporter of the riots. He was they called him a other wing supporter. And we watched him get shot in the street, and the guy was praised as a hero. But that never happened. Minneapolis didn't burn to the ground. That didn't happen. That was not violence. That is peaceful protesting. We continue on to the next one, natural immunity. This talks about how the Constitution has these checks and balances in it, like the Congress does one thing and the Supreme Court does another and the executive does another, and they kind of insulate and prevent one another from going too far. You know, like there's no judges or justices that turn a blind eye to FISA stuff or anything like that. There's no 99% approval rate on that. That's a myth. As I go through, I'm just going to skip to the end here. And we're going to get to the nut of it. Hold the line. Nobody on our side of the aisle would know anything about that. America's on the cusp of a competitive authoritarianism. The Trump administration has already begun to weaponize state institutions and deploy them against opponents. Good thing that didn't happen during Obama or Biden. The Constitution alone cannot save U.S. democracy. Even the best designed constitutions have ambiguities and gaps that can be exploited for anti-democratic ends. After all, the same Constitution order that undergirds the American contemporary liberal democracy permitted nearly a century of authoritarianism, Jim Crow South, and mass internment of Japanese, and McCarthyism. Jim Crow South. Dixiecrats. Excuse me. Mass internment of Japanese Americans. I suppose that was under Trump or Eisenhower or Hoover. Certainly wouldn't have been a Democrat. Oh, and Joseph McCarthy was friggin' right. In 2025, the United States is governed nationally by a party with greater will and power to exploit constitutional and legal ambiguities for authoritarian ends than any time in the past 2 centuries. Trump will be vulnerable. The administration's limited public support And inevitable mistakes will create opportunities for democratic forces in Congress, in courtrooms, and the ballot box. Popularity is rising, but the opposition can only win if it stays in the game. Opposition under competitive authoritarianism can be grueling, worn down by harassment and threats. Many of Trump's critics will be tempted to retreat to the sidelines. Such as retreat would be perilous. When fear, exhaustion, and resignation crowds out citizens' commitment to democracy, emergent authoritarian begins to take root. We know. We were worn down by harassment and threats and lawfare and shock and law. So we had to find the chinks in the armor, and we had to hold the line, and we had to use the natural immunity of the Constitution to prevent there to be a left-wing friggin' takeover. What this piece doesn't say, through the whole thing, people voted for him. The people voted for him. The people voted for him to get rid of these sons of bitches at Foreign Affairs and their cronies in the government and their civil service bureaucrat lackeys. That's what they don't take into account, is that the people want them out. That we realize, that a vast majority of us realize, it is the bureaucracy itself that's the problem. It's these civil servants themselves who are the problem. They think they know better than the people. The people elect their representatives. When their elected representatives take office, the civil servants should not think they know better, like they did, as admitted in this piece, where they held the line, that civil servants and bureaucrats were the ones who thwarted Trump and held the line. So they deserve to be fired. They deserve to be gotten rid of. The people voted for this. And what the people at Foreign Affairs, with their path to American authoritarianism, don't understand is that they are the authoritarians. They lack the ability to look at a mirror and look at everything you saw in this article. And you can't tell me that this wasn't them listing what's coming, as much as it was a listing of their crimes that they have already committed against this country, against this man, and against its people. I told you, the lack of self-reflection in this piece is startling. Startling. And it also shows that they still don't get it. They don't understand. They think this is all policy-based. We're sick and tired of bureaucrats, civil servants who come out of these failed academies with a left-wing mindset indoctrinated in them from their professors, telling the rest of us they know better when they've never held a job in their whole damn life. You don't know anything? We're sick and tired of you? This piece, again, the lack of self-reflection is incredible. And the way they list their crimes, not what's coming. They list their crimes, is incredible. But that's all I got. I'm going to be sure to link this. If you've got the time, I sure ask you to read it. It's really enlightening. It is a long piece. It's going to take you a minute or two, but it's worth it. You always want to know what the enemy thinks, and the fact that they just still don't get it, that this is a cultural war, and they are on the losing side. It makes me feel good inside. And with that said, I really do thank you for sticking around. If you're here at the end, I hope you will like and subscribe, and I really do appreciate you swinging in. We'll catch you soon.